People fall down and they don't get up. My mom fell down on Friday and she didn't get up until Sunday, right? So I know what it is to be on the floor. But and I've never been on the floor really because I'm afraid that if I go to that level of abyss, I may not get up because I saw my mom. And so I can't go there. I cannot go there because you may not rise again. That's my fear.
Welcome to Breaking Barriers of Black Investors, where we explore the inspiring stories of successful Black investment professionals and share the strategies for breaking down barriers in the asset management industry. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. Today, we have a special guest in the podcast, Angela Matheny, the Director of Diverse Manager Equity at Crucial Partners, an advisory firm that provides customized investment advice to nonprofit institutions. Angela, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
It's a pleasure to have you on. I mean, it's been, I had to lock you down for a while with all the traveling you've been doing.
Yes, but I always try to make myself available to many, many people because the work that we do at Crucial, it's a personal commitment for me. So I try to be accessible. I try to be responsive. There's a saying that you can't save the world, but I'm gonna grab as many as I can along the way and just do the work that I'm personally committed to do every single day that actually merges into my professional life. So here we are.
So, many of us know you from the professional side and all the hard work that you have done thus far, but not too many really truly understand or know your story. I want to take the time to really just explore you and share your story with the world. So, I want to start from the very beginning. Tell us about, where you're from and where it all started for you.
Yes. So I often in my head, and I see this as if it were yesterday. I'm that little black girl from Cypress Hills Projects in Brooklyn, New York. So I grew up between Brownsville, which is known as, at least in my day, murder capital, because that's how economically depressed that area was. And I was in the heart of a beautiful neighborhood, but then also came through that neighborhood by way of staying with my aunt sometimes, and actually met my husband there in Tilden Projects where his family lived. And then just across the street, I have family in Brownsville houses and Suffalo houses. And we experienced a crack epidemic as it actually snatched away a lot of our family members and friends during that period. But still, not having gotten caught up in all of that, there was economic and social blight all around us. And I often thought, even in my East New York neighborhood where I was really going back and forth between Brownsville and East New York, I thought, how do I get the hell out of here? We are not making progress. How do I get into the mainstream of things? Where are my mentors? And so, in hindsight, I still would not trade that experience and what I saw there for anything, because it's the core of who I am in terms of the high level of altruism that I have deeply in my soul, that actually connects to the work and the work of the nonprofits, which we'll get into later as our client base. That is real to me because I know what it looks like to not have. I know that education is a way out of poverty. I also know deeply how poverty manifests. If I can help in any little way personally, I will give the shirt off my back. But now today, with the work that we get to do professionally at Crucial, we still give the shirts off our back in many ways, but in a different way. Because we so align with the work of the institutions that we serve. But anyway, I don't want to get too far ahead of the question that you asked, but it's so funny how it correlates and it's all merging together. And if I could be a civil rights leader, I would be. There's so many different directions I want to go into because of my personal journey. It's just a fascinating time. And when I look at that little black girl again from the projects, I think, wow, she's still exploring in a lot of ways. And I'm exploring now as an adult. And it took me a long time to get here. And I'm just so happy and proud of the work again that we're doing, but I'm proud of me too because I've really seen this manifestation of someone who was really lost in the world. But now I found myself through my purpose. I know what my purpose is in life. I know why I'm here. I know how I can help. I know what I'm supposed to do. And I probably have one more season in me of something really different.
You know, it's interesting because not too many of us actually take the time to reflect upon, where we were and how we got to where we are now. So, this gives you a good moment to really sit down, just really just, marinate on some of the things that you had to overcome. And, going back, I mean, you had a very tough upbringing, it seems like. And you talked about purpose. So I'm curious to know, what is that purpose?
My purpose is to help people who are on the margins to get into the mainstream of things. 7 years ago, before I joined Crucial, I had just finished graduate school, and I thought, and my brother was murdered at the age of 27. That's what really was that pivotal moment for me because I thought, where were his resources, and why wasn't I looking for resources for him so that he didn't get caught up in the things that he got caught up in? So I was about to start a nonprofit. I was in the middle of completing my 501(c) application. And so, in looking at all of that, I always wanted to help my people in my neighborhood to upskill. How do you get into the workforce? What skills do you need? We could talk about this in a bit, but there was no path for me to go to college. I would have loved to be on the campus of an HBCU through United Negro College Fund and Unite, UNCF rather, and Unite. I got to go to my first homecoming, but in a professional setting at a large conference hotel, the Hyatt Regency in Atlanta. And, we had our jeans and sneakers on, and I was just looking at all the line dancing that was happening in the middle of the floor. I'm like, oh my God, this is my jam. I missed this. But because I didn't have that path to college, there was no way that I could get out of my hood and go to an HBCU that was clearly in another state because the little income that I was making in my little Burger King job, my mother needed it. And then my mother suffered from alcoholism. And I didn't really know it was that because she only drank on the weekend. So I didn't know that she would be looked at as an alcoholic from us, not other people, because Monday through Friday or Thursday, I should say, she had all her stuff together, and our house was immaculate, and we never missed a meal, and we were trained up correctly as to be classy young ladies. But she had her own issues growing up, and on Friday the bottom just fell out, and her stress reliever was alcohol. That continued until Sunday, and sometimes it spilled into Monday. And as the middle child who was actually acting as the oldest, I thought, I can't leave the house and go to school because who's going to lock the door behind me? And then I had a little brother. Again, he passed away at 27, but at the time, he was an infant, and I was 10 years old in fifth grade. And I thought I had to stay with him for the day. And sometimes that did happen, and I missed school. And I was cleaning up after my mom, although I didn't have to largely for the most part. But on those days when she was down and she needed her rest and she needed to just tap out, because life just wasn't fair. And we were in the projects, and my father also was murdered at the age of 27. He wasn't the father of my brother, but her three girls, we all had the same dad, and we grew up not on welfare but on his social security and food stamps. And so I had to supplement my mom's income. She was a domestic worker, and I was working since the age of 14, and I've never stopped. I've never been laid off. I've never been fired from a job where, I could then recover and just get another job right away. I was always working since I was 14. Came up in the summer youth employment, summer youth program, right? So you can get that job, and then you can get, back then, now I guess you can get a weekly check now if you're still part of that low income community where you can take advantage of that program. But back then, you got two big major checks, and the first one didn't come for a couple of weeks. And what we did
Wow.
is we took that $500-600 check, and we bought school clothes with it. I remember being on Pickens Avenue in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and playing card Molly with my money I was supposed to me and my sister buy school clothes with because we thought we could win. How ignorant we were. And we didn't get our school clothes because we got robbed of the money, and we didn't know how to go back home and tell our mom we lost all our money. So, it was things like that. But, I look back on that and it was hard times, but my mom still made a way. We still had, 1, 2, 3 outfits that we rotated, and I went to school with my pleated skirt and my sharp, crisp white shirt, I should say, and blue pleated skirt and my curly afro. We got our washing set every single week, took our baths. We were cleaner than the Board of Health, and we went to school and we did not miss a beat. We did not miss a meal. And man, just reflecting on those times, it's just really the core of who I am. So when I see people struggling, when I see people on the margins, I was in the thick of that. I know what that means. And later on, when we talk about getting women and people of color access to capital, you damn right I'm on the front lines and I'm going to do everything that I can to promote change and to change those systematic and structural barriers because I don't like them. I was in the midst of it, and I'm still looking for my opportunities. And the reason why I look for my opportunities is because it gives light and power and influence for those that I have to help that are coming up behind me.
I think you have a fascinating story. Wow. I mean, I'm almost speechless because just listening to some of the things that you said. I mean, I didn't have to go through that level of challenge, but you had to grow up very quickly. I'm almost curious with that level of responsibility. Who was there to guide you? If you were the one that was doing a lot of the guiding for others and making sure that the household was on point, like, did you have anybody or anyone significant that was there to guide you along the way?
No, I really didn't. I had to figure out things on my own. I mean, my mother created a safe space, but again, only Monday through Thursday. But I was always looking for the helpers. And then I realized, fast forward, I'm the helper. I'm the one I've been waiting for. I used to just go throughout my neighborhood and go through other neighborhoods. I remember looking for a church, and I went to every church. I went to the Catholic church, I went to the Baptist, I went to the Pentecostal, and I was just checking out what people were doing. But I always had God to answer your question in my faith. And we weren't in church every Sunday, by way of my mom taking us, because I told you earlier what she was doing on Sunday was recovering a lot of the time. But somehow a neighbor, she brought me to the church, and I spent some time there through her. She was an older woman, and funny thing is, she was the damn bootlegger in the building, but she preached on Sunday. So I went to church with her. But I remember going to the Catholic church. I remember going to an all Spanish speaking church, did not understand a word, but ate the bread and the little cranberry juice, and I was like, okay, what is this experience? And I just always wanted to be in the middle of something that was good and again safe, because I saw all of this blight around me, and I never went left for some reason. I always went right, towards a path where I could learn and grow. But obviously, I wasn't learning enough. I got left back in the third grade because instead of learning in school, we were playing in our classroom all day. But you don't go home and tell your mom that we're playing all day in school. And I was sitting there copying down the homework with another girl, and we were sitting and being good and doing what we were supposed to do. But the damn teacher wasn't teaching. So I couldn't pass, my core exam, so I got left back. But then fast forward, I had an amazing teacher in the 6th grade, and I got a high reading and math score, and I got into the gifted and talented program. And so I skipped the 8th grade, so I went from 7th to 9. But then I got lost again in high school, struggled a little bit, graduated, but I graduated after that summer of making up some courses that I failed in the 9th grade. And again, it was just me wandering and just wondering, where's my help? Not understanding math at the time. I had a terrible algebra teacher, and I just wondered, why the hell are they mixing alphabet with numbers? Like, what is, oh my God, this is terrible. And so when I made it to the 11th grade, I was a conditional senior because I was missing some credits. Again, my guidance counselor was not guiding, failed me. I went from Brooklyn to Queens because I wanted to just leave Brooklyn and see something different. So I graduated from August Martin High School. But I remember approaching my senior year being short of the credits. I'm like, you guys tell me now that I don't have enough credits to graduate. I'm thinking that, okay, if you failed physics and then math, all right, we just moving forward. Everything else was good in terms of grades, but those were my areas where I struggled. But then my principal said to me, if you promise to go to summer school and make up these 2 courses so that you can get your credits, I will let you walk down the aisle for graduation. And I said, I promise you, I have to work, I have to walk with my class, right? Because it was embarrassing. And also, I just wanted to move on to whatever that next thing was. And clearly, it wasn't college at the time, but I had to get out of there. It was time. And so I made good on my promise, and I'll never forget. I was standing in the parking lot, walking into the graduation ceremony. My aunt, my uncle, and my mom was there, and at the time, my boyfriend, who would later be my husband, he was there. And somebody yelled across the parking lot, "Angela, what did you get on the SATs?" And I yelled back, "What are the SATs?" And when I think about that, it crushes me inside to a point where I just never want anybody to miss out on basic information that they should have, the way I did. So again, going back to what's my path for college, there was no path.
Mm.
But I made it through, and my high school diploma, instead of it stating that I graduated in June of 1986, okay, I just told my age. It actually said September because that's when the Board of Ed issued it. And then from there, I went to a trade school because I saw a commercial, learn a skill to get a job. And so that's what I did. I enrolled in Taylor Business Institute. I learned how to type 100 words a minute a year
Wow.
later, and I learned I learned the Wang computer. You all can Google that one. It was a big box. And Wang used to have a building on Third Avenue in Midtown. So anyway, off I went to corporate America, trying to find my way in the mainstream of things. Tried to get a secretarial job on Wall Street. No one would hire me. All the white women, young women, had those jobs, and I couldn't get my foot in the door. So I thought, okay, with this skill set that I learned, because man, I was fast, I was eager, I was hungry, I was everything in the interview. I borrowed my mom's pearl earrings. I put on my little flowered dress, my little crisp white shirt, and there I went on the A train from East New York and Brooklyn, off to Midtown, to an interview, and I nailed it every time. There was no test that I didn't pass. They gave me a math test, they gave me the reading test, they gave me the typing test, and I killed it. But I didn't look the part, right? So those jobs, I was passed over. And then finally, I ended up creating a career path for myself in a law firm. I remember being 25 years old and making $100,000 that year without a college degree yet. Right. So I didn't have a college degree yet. And I thought, hey, why do I need a degree? I just made 100 grand. I remember, and so had my apartment already with now I'm married, or I was getting married right before that job. I was getting sent home because I was doing a lot of overtime. This is before my son was born because he wouldn't be born until I was about 28. And they would send me home in black town cars and limousines. And I was thinking, oh my God, they must think I'm a woman of the night. I'm getting the stretch woman home. But at the time, law firms did that. They paid your meals, they paid your overtime, and they made sure that you got home safe after 8 p.m. So I would work up until 10 p.m. And man, I was making money hand over fist with that overtime. And it actually allowed me to scale as an individual. Bought my first car. Well, I did that at Burger King, bought my second car at that point, and then it was time for home ownership eventually. And so that's how I came up the ranks. And then when my son was born, I thought, hey, I'm a mentor now. I actually have to get a formal education, a higher education, right? Because I can't just preach this stuff to him or her. And so I enrolled in Medgar Evers College in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. Didn't graduate from there because then I would stop. I would pay attention to my marriage and my family and my son. So left there with 30 college credits, and then picked it up later on at Baruch College. So I eventually graduated from Baruch College, and I went back during an interesting period because it was the global economic crisis that year,
Mm,
right? 2008. But man, was that the best education. It was the most diverse classroom because all of a sudden, all the rich white kids that would normally go to private school, a lot of them, they were coming to the CUNY system. And my professors told me this. They were like, oh, yeah, the curriculum is rigorous because of the student body that we're getting here. And so I got to benefit from that. And it was the
mm.
best experience ever. And then eventually, right after that, I went to grad school.
Before we actually talk about your college experience, I want to take a step back a bit. When you were going through all those interviews
Mhm.
and you felt like you was ready and you knew that you aced all the tests that they had or they presented to you, but yet you were still not getting the interview.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
That made me feel bad because I knew it was because of the color of my skin. But you know what? Oh my God, when I don't often you're asking me some really key questions that are really, really hitting some special places in my heart because the first time I experienced discrimination was from my father, who was very light skinned, fair skinned, and he used to treat me different than my older sister, who was fair skinned like her. And so I'm brown skinned like my mom, and then the majority of the people on, or a lot of the people on my father's side are light skinned. And so it's just me and my sister, we're a year apart at this time. And he used to walk us to school and he would hold her hand and buy her oatmeal cookies, and I walked behind them. I actually wrote about this for one of our clients, Central Community Foundation of New York. There's a blog where I talk about this experience. But I didn't get oatmeal cookies, and he didn't hold my hand going to school. He didn't like me and actually denied me and questioned my mother. Was I even his child because I was brown skinned? And so but I don't tell that story as a woe of me type of story. I tell that story because it built this strong armor, protected my heart, and it gave me resilience, and it gave me the tenacity and the willpower to lift myself up, and that's how I lift other people up. So not getting those jobs because of I'm a woman, I'm a black woman, I'm a black girl, whatever. I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to not let anything or anybody stop me. I will land in the right place eventually. And
Hmm.
when I do, I am going to outperform. I am going to run circles around you. And so that's the problem, largely also in the area of work that we focus on in getting access to capital. And I don't want to get too far ahead to diverse managers, but I have to make this correlation to our work in terms of what happened to me personally. If you spend time with people, if you spend time in a certain place, that's probably the fear. That's why we don't share, right? Because people will outpace you, they will outperform. So even as a little girl, I knew better. I knew that I was a special person, that I was a good girl. And if my father were alive today, if he could see me, if he could see my life, he would be so proud. But man, unfortunately, because he lived his life, he doesn't get to benefit from the wonderful person that I am and the work that I do. And that's unfortunate. And it's the same thing with people in life who don't share and who are not inclusive and who don't want to spend time with people and that you should spend time with, because what you'll find is that we have more in common than what separates us. And so that's my life story. So I understand it deeply. I have a lot of cultural competency and, in terms of meeting people in different life journeys, different paths, because I was on that path. I'm still on that path. I am still knee deep in my community. No matter what I do in life, no matter what I do professionally, I'm still always going to have a great affinity, allegiance to my hood, to my people, and to every type of person. My brother who passed away, he was an Afro Latino. His father was Hispanic, so I have a love for the Hispanic community because of that connection with him and his father's side of the family. Both of my daughters identify as lesbian, so I care very much about the LGBTQ community. You really don't know who Angela is unless you really talk to me and spend time with me. I care about a lot of things, and I'm connected in so many ways. And it's just so fascinating that I get to touch so many people in so many different ways.
Real quick, we hope you're enjoying the episode and your support would mean the world to us. If you find value in breaking barriers of Black investors, we kindly ask you to take a moment to rate and leave a review on your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also encourage others to join our empowering community. Thank you. With that experience that you had with your father, that allowed you to eventually, I guess, kind of grow this barrier separation between letting people in. Because it seems like anything that life threw at you from that day on, you just kept it moving,
Yeah.
right? Do you think that also prevented a lot of genuine people to get close to you because of their first interaction with you and the way that they were perceived, and then you immediately put your guard up, or you don't necessarily think that was the case?
No, I don't have a guard that I put up because I realized even long ago. First of all, I was too naive to put a guard up because, and then I think I was just too curious as a young girl, as someone who likes to explore. I knew not to venture off into to be too exploratory, to go down the wrong path, because I also had this fear. One thing that I've never told anyone, but since we're talking about my personal life here, I was kidnapped when I was 13 years old. So won't go into that gory story, but and I was just walking home from school one day. But having that experience and God getting me out of that terrible spot, that moment, and reconnecting with my family, I still was open. My heart was open, my mind was open. I put that aside because I'm resilient, because every single person in my family was resilient. I had uncles who were Black Panthers. My mom, even though I described, some of her life, she was a tough woman. Her five brothers came to get her when there was a fight to be had on the playground, and when somebody took something from them. She was at the forefront of their battles. And she was very admirable. Like I idolized her when I was growing up, because she was just a strong person. So I'm always, to answer your question, I'm receptive to a lot of things. I'm open, but I also know who I am. I also know how giving and kind I am. And when you cross me, it's your loss. I'm fine with walking away from relationships because I give so much. And even people, if you were to interview anybody in my family, they'll tell you two things. Personally, you don't want Angela in your shit, because when I'm in your shit, it's just so, I have such a passion for seeing you do well. And I present to you when you have a problem, plan A, plan B, plan C. What you want, do you want? Right? And so when I'm in your shit, when I get called by a family member to help or to fix something, because I'm the secretary, I'm the accountant, I'm everything to the family. It's time for the plan. And if you're not ready for the plan, do not call Angie. My friend, my family affectionately call me Angie. Don't call Angie if you're not ready for the plan. And so that's how they see me. When I get involved, I'm all in. But when you're not ready for me, when you're not ready for my help, and that's not to say that I'm everything and I'm not conceited in any way, but I can really drive towards the end result, the outcome, because again, I've been in places where people fall down and they don't get up. My mom fell down on Friday and she didn't get up until Sunday, right? So I know what it is to be on the floor. But and I've never been on the floor really, because I'm afraid that if I go to that level of abyss, I may not get up, because I saw my mom. And so I can't go there. I cannot go there because you may not rise again. That's my fear. And so I drive ahead really strong and forceful with everything that's in my core, in my being, everything that I do. It's at a really fast forward level, because we've wasted so much time. I've seen people in my neighborhood and my family not be as productive as they could have been. And so I don't have time to waste, especially at this age doing the work that I do. I wasted so much of my life with people derailing me, not treating me fairly. And so now that I have a bit of influence and an amazing team, an amazing mentor and sponsor, and my CIO, who hired me to do this work, who saw something in me, I'm going fast and I'm pulling so many people up with me and alongside of me, because there's no time to waste. Look what's going on right now in society. Look what's happening with the Fearless Fund. You come for one, you're coming for all, right? You're coming for all of us. And there's no time to waste. The time is now to create change. The time is now to do the most that we can as a people. And so whether you have allies to help you with that work, and I love to use the art of persuasion when people tell me no, when people tell me you can't, what? No, no is not in my vocabulary.
That's awesome. I was actually reading the article that was posted regarding the freelance fund. I thought that was very interesting. Seeing how the ladies came together, just created the letter and just
Mhm,
really trying to advocate something a little bit more, a lot more, trying to show the positivity behind this.
mhm.
I thought that was incredible.
It was incredible, and I know a lot of women in connection to, um, that letter, and as an LP ecosystem, I just wanna say that, Crucial stands for what's right. We fight against a lot of things that are inequitable, and that goes to show who we are with our manager research process. And so, whether you're in our process or not, right is right and wrong is wrong.
Of course,
And so that's how we feel about that situation. It's wrong, and we stand with them, and we hope that they 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 uh, they rise above uh, this case that has been brought against them. And I hope that they're just creative and innovative to keep focusing on the thing that they built and why
of
they built
course,
it. Why does it even exist? Why is there even a need? There's obviously a need for the things that have been put in place on a policy level, on a legislative level. But some people think that we've arrived at a place where we don't need those sorts of policies and programs and grants. Black people are still the lowest persons on the totem pole, right, on an economic scale. Why do you think we not still need support in many aspects? So there is a need. This is just wrong, and you're picking on someone small. But what you didn't realize is that they've got some big, big supporters behind them, and it's just amazing. And I can't wait to see the outcome. But we're going to keep doing the work, and we'll just do what people have done historically. When you've excluded us and when you've tried to stop us, we'll just be creative. We built this country. There is nothing that we are facing right now that we cannot overcome.
of course. And before we actually get into how you got to where you are right now, because to those who actually listening to this podcast, we all could hear the passion behind what you're doing and why you're doing it and who you're doing it for. And but just to go back a little bit, while you was in college and you were going to school, you was working at the law firm. What I'm curious to know is how were you able to manage all that, but yet still keeping the end goal in mind?
Oh man, I look back at that time and I remember sitting on the couch, and at the time my son, I don't know, he was probably around, he was definitely a teenager, still in high school. And I managed it because I'm a multitasker. That's number one. I remember my husband at the time, he said to me, "Can you just sit down? Like, you're always doing stuff for other people." And I'm like, "Because people need help, and I have the resources, or I know I have the know-how. And so why wouldn't I help?" But at the time, he wanted me to just sit still and be in a certain place, just be a mother, just be a wife. Why can't I be all these things, right? But I remember sitting on the couch in the living room, and I was studying. So I went to, I had a full-time job, and I incorporated school by going to class before work. So I
Mhm.
had a 7:30, 8 a.m. class at Baruch, whatever that schedule was. And then I ran to work and made it in time for my 9:30 shift that started at 9:30. Then I went back on my lunch hour, right? Because there's time to do that. Because Baruch was on 23rd Street, the office was on 54th Street. And so I can just take the 6 train a couple of stops, and I'm in my Spanish class at lunchtime. And then I went back after work. So the schedule was crazy. And my husband's holding it down with the kids at the time, while I went through that period, because, right, years before that, I did while he built his career in management and healthcare. So we were just managing, and that's what a true partnership is in a marriage. So it was good. But going back to that studying that I did, I'll never forget. It was Friday night, and now it's Saturday. I'm sitting on the couch till 3 in the morning, and I'm studying for this exam. I think it was a algebra or trigonometry exam, and I just couldn't go to sleep because part of your practice and preparing for any exam is just making all your mistakes in the homework and just practice, practice, practice. So that's what I was doing. So my son said, "Mom, what are you studying?" And I said, "I have a math test early in the morning." The math test was 9 a.m. on a Saturday. So here I go. My husband's dropping me off at the train station, and I'm taking the train. At the time, we're in Queens. I'm still in Queens in the same home. And I'm taking this long ass train ride all the way back to Manhattan on a Saturday where everybody's sleeping late, they're doing whatever, you know. And I took that math test and I aced it. I killed it dead. I got one wrong and I went to department head and I said, "Which one did I get wrong?" Because prepared. I was prepared to get 100. They said, "No, you got one wrong." "Which one? Which one?" I was ready. Bring it. I don't know if I answered your question, but that I remember that moment where nothing could stop me. I was on a high, in terms of achievement. And I was like, "Oh, damn, math is back again. They're just not going to give me this degree without this math." So, I overcame that and I became so good at it that I wanted to teach math because I understand the problems that some of our kids are having in our community, not spending enough time with the person who can really, really help you to understand the problem differently. So finding Angela is almost, when I was looking for X in my algebraic equations, finding X, I found Angela. When I found a lot of things. And it was fascinating. And I just fell in love with math. I fell in love with school. And yeah, when I reflect on that moment, it was a lot. Sometimes I was exhausted. I remember going to work on a holiday. It was probably Labor Day, I think, also, because it's coming up. Yeah, I think it was. And I showed up at work, and I didn't get all of the signs that I saw along the way. So again, my husband dropped me at the train station. The freaking train was empty. Okay. The E train was empty. Nobody really was on the E train. Nope, didn't get a clue because I was studying on my way into the office on that Monday. And so I get to the office. All right. There's nobody really around. It's early. Attorneys, they work 24/7, and it was a 24/7 shop. The law firm, financial services law firm, that I had spent 23 years in multiple roles. Really, really great time in my life again, because it was a very lucrative opportunity working there while supporting my family and going to school. And so the attorney comes into the pantry and he said, "Angela, what are you doing here?" And I said, I'm working." He said, "But it's a holiday." So here I go on automatic pilot, right? We had officially had a firm holiday, but because I'm just going, 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 I show up at work and nobody's there. We had the day off. So I called my husband when I got to my office and I was like, "Can you believe it's a firm holiday?" And the other clue that I should have gotten is that he's in healthcare. They hardly ever gave him any holidays, and he was home that day. So he said, "Bring your ass back home and get in his bed and get some rest." And so here I go back on the train and back home. And where could have had a day of rest, I sabotaged myself because I'm just a go getter, and I was just like, "This is the work. This is what I have to do. This is where I'm headed, and there's nobody that's going to stop me."
I tell you what, Angela, many of us need to be in our autopilot modes. Trust me. I mean, I see a lot of people, they're just wasting time. Like, man, like,
Hmm.
one day is different from the other. Sure,
Yeah.
there's many people out there that love the dynamic aspect of things. And I think, having some, dynamic is good. But I also think that you need, routine, something that's a little bit more
Mhm.
autopilot,
Yeah.
over a long-term time frame, generate outcome.
Mhm.
Because I'm a big believer in terms of, if you do something
Mhm.
and you do it enough,
Mhm.
eventually the universe have no choice but to make you better at it.
That's exactly right. And that's what it is with anything, right? You can become a subject matter expert in things. And I'm sort of a generalist. I'm like sort of like I always say to young people when I'm mentoring, the president has advisors all around him or her, right?
Mhm.
And so a little bit about a lot. And if you spend enough time in certain areas on certain, topics, you'll know enough to really thrive and to be good at a lot of things, and then all the other things that you don't know, you have your experts around you, you have your colleagues around you, and together you make a great team. And so if I could do something all over again, I would say that I would be a subject matter expert in something. And maybe I am today, right? A racial equity expert is what I'm striving for, and I kind of fell upon in my work in the finance industry. I didn't know that that would be a component of the job. Again, just mind blowing, amazing, the impact of that, right? The civil rights leader in me, the outspoken person in me, the person who wants to save everybody, the person who wants to lift everybody up. I have a voice, I have something to say, but I will say that I listen more than I talk, because
Of
when I
course.
do speak, it's powerful, it's impactful, it's passionate, it's coming from a certain place. Not everybody has this, but this is what we need even as analysts, because if you deeply want to understand the impact of anything that we do in this industry, you've got to have that differentiated view. You've got to have that background. You've got to be on a certain path. And all of us together with our experiences, no matter what they are, no matter where we come, all walks of life, if we actually just band together, oh my God, we can do so much. We can solve for so much.
So let's talk about that path, right? Because you spent almost 20 years working at a law firm that was
Hmm.
doing you were doing very well there,
Hmm.
and then the opportunity to work at Crucial came along.
Yeah.
You know, what how did that opportunity came about?
It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. So at the time, we had a chief human resources officer. Her name is Patricia Wortham. She's just awesome, dynamic woman, black woman, Haitian. And she and I had worked together at the law firm, and they didn't treat her well there, I have to say. And she used to come to my office, and she just used to unload on me. And, this is early in our friendship. And I just used to listen and console her. And I would just pour everything into her so that by the time she left the office, she was ready for anything. Now, trust me, she was tough. But sometimes when people just keep, trying to keep you in a box, and she was the smartest one in the group at the time, in that she came to her HR meetings with great ideas, with innovation. But because, you don't have a certain title or status, they weren't valued. And I also like to say that maybe people felt threatened by her innovation, creativity, and all of her great ideas. And they didn't come to the meeting, with great ideas. And maybe they were coasting and she stood out. That's what really was happening. And so I would pump her up and pour into her when she was in my office. And she would come very early. I shared an office with three other amazing ladies. But she would come early, where she and I had some alone time, so that we could have these private conversations. And so when she left, she went to one other company, probably Oppenheimer, I think. But then eventually she landed at Colonial slash Crucial Partners, because we're the firm formerly known as Colonial. We rebranded. That's another story, an amazing story, a good story, a healthy story. Um, and so I had finished my graduate program in New York City. So I have this urban education. Again, wouldn't trade it for anything in life, because, again, I am coming from a different perspective. And the value of an outside perspective that's different from the group is what I bring and what I stand on. And when I see talent, I see the same things in terms of, you know, um, where I came up the ranks and where I come from. So, anyway, I was on LinkedIn, and I saw that she had reached the status of director of HR, right? So first she's like, not even a generalist at the law firm. She was an assistant in the HR group, but then she came along, and I'm like, wait, what? Patricia, she's now a director. Okay. So I reach out to her, and she wasn't reaching back. And I thought, I felt bad, because I know who I am. I know what the friendship was. And I was like, why isn't she reaching back? So, I'm just asking for her help, and I'm networking. And I'm not looking at the time to be hired at Colonial Crucial Partners. I'm just reaching out because I wanted to get a part of HR that I didn't have exposure to at the law firm. So I was in a training and development group. I did some HR projects. I was I had the pleasure of working in the HR group on a lot of different things, but I wasn't deeply embedded on the recruiting side and the sourcing side, except for when I worked with the secretarial group. I helped in that area. So I got a lot of exposure and experience with sourcing and recruiting there, which actually aligns with a lot of the work that I do at Crucial now. But anyway, I wanted her to give me an aspect of HR that I didn't have exposure to. So what ended up happening was, because that law firm is a 24-hour, 24/7 shop, I changed my shift from 2 to 10 p.m., walked down the block to Crucial, volunteered for 6 months. For 6 months, and she said, "Help me build a training and development program here, and then I will teach you everything that I know, with respect to HR." And she gave me exposure to a lot of things on a volunteer basis. And I was not looking to work there because it was a two-person HR group at the time, and there was no room for me. And plus, it was just a small place. But when I got to understand who our client base was and is, which is nonprofit organizations, oh, what? That's my jam. Wait, what are these nonprofits doing? Who are they helping? Who are the stakeholders? What is this one and that one focused on? Oh, the Salvation Army is a client. Oh my God, this is amazing. And so that was fascinating. And then in walks one day our CIO, Mike Miller. And I noticed this dude, he always comes in with a suitcase behind him, and it takes him a half hour to get to his office. He's like the freaking mayor. Everybody loves him. And I'm like, who is that? Oh, that's Mike. And everybody is just smiling and glowing, and they love to talk to him. They love to see him. And he loves to talk to everyone as well. And so he goes by my desk, doesn't know who I am. And this happened twice. He just smiles and he just says hello. And I speak back. We didn't have a long conversation, but he saw a new face and he just spoke. And I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. So anyway, fast forward, the C-suite had just been built out a couple of months earlier, or maybe a year before I had landed there as a volunteer. And they threw my name in a hat, the CFO and my friend Patricia Wortham. And I was overqualified for what he was looking for. He was looking for someone to help manage the C suite, and maybe not initially going that far, but it ended up being that. But also just to be his coordinator. And so, really, like a glorified assistant. And I have another story I won't tell here, but a lot of people, a few, I would say two other people that I could think of off the top of my head that are in director roles had the same path that I had. And so he never keeps an assistant. Everybody always outgrows the role, and there's somewhere else to go in Crucial because of the amazing talent that we identify, and because of the autonomy, and because of the different paths that you can take there. You can actually scale as a person. So they throw my name in a hat. He's like, I don't want to interview this person. She's overqualified for what I need right now. And so Patricia says, trust me, just have a talk with her. She had envisioned that I would be the diversity person there. But I think she was only thinking about our internal efforts. I get an interview with him, and I don't really care what happens, because I was going to go off and be the global chief diversity officer somewhere, make my way into that, career path somehow. So that's what I was headed towards. But we had this amazing interview. I remember him, asking about your questions, getting to know me, and he was just really a very attentive, down to earth person. And I said to him, "What did you do yesterday?" And he said, "Huh, funny you should ask." Because he told me a story of a client who's very focused on racial equity, who wanted more diverse asset managers in their portfolio. And he said, how many Black managers do you have, or Black and brown managers, or maybe they said diverse managers in our portfolio? And are you spreading them across your client base, basically? So identify them and then tell them, are you spreading them across, making recommendations basically for other clients that you oversee in your advisory role. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. And he said, you know what, after the conversation, and he saw, my passion and commitment. And of course, I didn't share with him half as much as what I'm sharing with you in this audience today. But he saw something in me, and he saw, with respect to the skill sets that I had built, And yes, I was overqualified for what he would initially want me to do, and that was, man, I my vantage point, I would never change it. Never ever change it. He gave me access to his email. I saw how he communicated. I saw what he communicated. I saw how he spoke with clients. I started proofreading his memos, his investment client memos that would be presented to the investment committee, what he was saying about capital markets, what was happening in their portfolio, and I thought, huh, oh my God, this stuff is interesting. And so I learned. I learned and I asked if I could be in certain meetings and I asked if I could get my 2 cents. And he said, you can give me your 2 cents wherever you want. Show me my blind spots. I was born on third base, and this is all still in the interview. And I want you to tell me what I'm missing. You know, you can't help where you're born in life, what lot you were born in life, who your parents are, right? So he acknowledges that. High moral compass this person has, still has, but I identified that this day. And I remember, now you know that in an interview, you're supposed to maintain eye contact. Well, I took a break to say a prayer because there was a big window behind him. And I said, Lord, I don't know where this white guy comes from, but thank you, Jesus. I got this job. I've got this. About a week later, I was on the road with Patricia. We were attending an HR conference called SHRM in DC, and I got to go over to the Black Caucus conference as well. Met some amazing asset managers. Met Bob Green at NAIC. I think he was, I don't know, he might have been moderating this panel, but that was my first exposure to an asset manager panel. And my bestie in the industry, Tiffany McGee of Pivotal Advisors. She was a badass on the panel. And I said, oh my God, who's that? Who's that woman? We have the same
Oh yeah.
personality. And so I was just learning. And there was a bunch of asset managers in the audience who had not known, hadn't fully known who they were at the time, but I understood the work and why they were there. And so on my way back to New York, because we had driven up, me and my husband and kids, because we also had some family in the DC area we were visiting while I was at the conference. I got an offer, and I got my offer letter that I would later sign. And it was just a week after the interview. And my husband told me at the time, I'm so proud of you. But he was also intimidated by what I would become and where I would go because there was a lot of travel. There is a lot of travel involved in this job in terms of what I was asked to do. So going back to the interview that day, he said, I need you to source diverse managers. I need you to find them, is what he said. I need you to find these managers that we know and believe, are talented, but, I need you to find those networks. And he didn't tell me how to do it. I had this amazing autonomy in my new role that was created. This role was very
Mhm.
different. This role had not been created on the LP side before. You could have your diversity committees, but you had never had before a person whose 100% focus is on sourcing diverse managers on the LP side. Later on, we saw Jasmine Richards from Cambridge, and maybe others. Um, but I remember a client, that same client he was talking about in that interview, calling up and saying, who is this Angela person? Wait, what are y'all doing? And so it was groundbreaking. And one of the things that I brought to the role was I promised to give feedback because our people want to know what they don't know. And so you just can't meet with someone, and this is my HR hat now, you can't meet with someone for an entire hour, speak with them, ask them questions, want to know things about their, educational, background and path. And if you want to sneak some, or be creative and strategize around questions that, point to their personal life, just to see who you're really talking to see if the person is not only a fit for the role, but a fit for the culture. And I take that back. We don't look to see if people are culturally fit for our organization. We like people to add to our culture. So I like to
Mhm.
entertain that idea of helping to add to a culture is what organizations should be doing. And so when you're interviewing someone and you get to those core questions, and this is what we do with asset managers as well. Who are you? You could start from birth. Just tell us your story, the way we started this interview, right? Because that really gets to, I think, how you invest, maybe, what informs you as an individual. What are you really interested in? What do you really care about? So but anyway, getting back to manager feedback, that's something that I brought which LPs didn't want to do because people, you can't tell people that their baby is ugly, right? This bright idea that you have, okay, we don't like it. Somebody will like it, but maybe we don't. Everything isn't for everybody. We have an investment philosophy that we stand on. We have a certain way that we think you should invest, that we like to invest. We are contrarian investors, but everyone is not going to be a fit. But I will tell you, whether we allocate or not, you will get feedback. And so that's one of the things that we brought in our process that we're proud of and we're going to continue to do. And I've made some amazing friendships and relationships that we've built because people know that they are going to know where they stand with us, whether we allocate or not. So this work has just been really, really gratifying personally, because it's a part of the helping. And even if we don't allocate to a manager, we get to other managers, we get other introductions to, okay, Angela, maybe, this is not a fit for Crucial, but I have somebody else in mind. May I introduce you to XYZ person or XYZ firm? And so, in a lot of ways, that's how we find a lot of our great ideas.
I think that's really interesting. So, just to kind of recap, you left the law firm. I mean, you volunteered while working at a law firm. You were volunteering at Crucial. An offer came up or a position came up.
Mhm.
You applied. You didn't even. I don't. I'm not sure if you applied, but you
I
interviewed
didn't.
for the position.
Yep.
You eventually got the role, and that role was particularly different from what they're used to.
Mhm.
And your main job was to source diverse managers.
Mhm.
And this is what you've been doing ever since, and also providing feedback whether you decided to allocate or not allocate to a manager. What I'm curious to know about is, as you sourcing managers, what are some of the current trends you are seeing within the diverse manager space?
There's a lot of focus on impact, and what I always say is, first of all, performance returns, top performance, and impact. They're not mutually exclusive. I remember being at a Black VC Institute conference, and somebody said before my panel went on stage, we should just automatically check the ESG box when you're investing with diverse managers, because we know what to do on the end. We can look at environmental injustices, we can look at the social side of the ESG framework and governance. Yeah, board diversity, that's something a lot of people care about, and we can see the change that could happen if we have board diversity. So we should just automatically get our ESG credentials. And so the audience erupted in laughter because it was funny, but it's true. So diverse asset managers, women, sometimes invest differently than men. We see the impact in a lot of things. And so, when we talk about impact, you can find excellent ideas. You do find creativity and innovation. And why do we think that we cannot achieve impact and, again, top performance at the same rate, at the same time? What I'm seeing is, we always see that or say that. I remember the first time me hearing this expression, oh, private equity is a sexy asset class. We don't see a lot of Black people in the hedge fund industry. Like, I can count on, like, all 10 hands how many hedge fund managers there are between the US and the UK, that we know about. And so why is it so hard to start a hedge fund, right? Very expensive, maybe higher hurdles in a lot of respects. But private equity, it's easy enough to figure out, whether you're growthy, whether you're buyout, especially venture. I'm seeing a lot of Black and brown men and women interventure, and I'm seeing a lot of them interventure with non-traditional backgrounds, so coming from all walks of life and just being tired of being sick and tired. Like, it shouldn't be this damn hard as a founder to raise capital, and so I'm going to do something about it. And now I'm a venture capitalist, and now my portfolio looks like this.
Talking about that, I think you posted an article. I'm not sure when you posted it on LinkedIn, where it talks about the a venture capital firm that decided to raise maybe $15 million,
Hmm.
right? And the article mentioned the number of potential investors that that person would have to talk to, assuming that person is allocating 10% of the portfolio to venture capital because they're relatively risky. They said that that person would have to talk to over 100 people, but then they have to talk less to 100 people. I mean, they have to get less than 100 people because they don't want to fit within that SEC, past that SEC restriction. So that means that they will have to literally speak to an individual with at least, I don't know, $1.5 million of portfolio. And knowing, our background, or even my background, there is not that many people within our network that we know that will be comfortably lend us that amount of money, right, to start our own firm, especially as a first time
Mm,
fund manager.
that's right.
So that was an interesting article that I saw that you posted.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so now, why do you think that a lot of them are pursuing the venture capital side? Is it because it's just easier to start?
Hmm.
Um, like, why?
Yeah. I think there's multiple reasons. One that I just pulled out is I'm seeing a lot of venture capitalists, a lot of the early ones that are just, that are just starting their firm, entering that market. Again, they have non-traditional backgrounds. They are founders. They have some operational experience, and again, they had a hard time getting access to capital as a startup, building their startup, and so now they want to become a VC to make that level of impact and to help all of those other founders and amazing investment opportunities that they weren't able to participate in because maybe they're an angel. Also, I'm seeing angel investors turn, institutional venture capitalists. But a lot of them care about the impact that we could make in many communities. And when you turn to our nonprofit client base and stakeholders and people in their region that they serve, this could be a startup in your backyard. I mean, there's the impact right there, right?
Yep.
An entrepreneur in my region, I am Mr. or Mr. Nonprofit, and I can write grants and scholarships, and we can have grant programs and, give these charitable donations. We can do all these things. But what about us thinking about how we can create real change by getting these ideas into the core part of the investment portfolio? Is what many organizations are thinking about now, and they're straight up. I've seen at least, I don't know, 5 of our clients in the past year or since the death of George Floyd say we are straight up. We've become racial equity focused community foundations, unapologetically. Black women ascending to the leadership role of CEO and president. I saw my friend from the Community Foundation of Charlottesville, of all places. I was introduced to her when we were participating in an RFP as the diversity program officer, I think. And so now she's CEO of that organization, and she's asking what's up, on the investment side. And so these are the key things that we need to pay attention to, because when you ask those questions and if you think about investing as a spectrum, everything from talent to looking at diverse asset managers and especially venture. Again, those startups are in your community, they're in your backyard. you know Aside from a grant program, we can invest in these amazing people who are turning to investment opportunities to help uplift those communities, to help, with economic blight, to help with economic development in that area. Wouldn't you be proud to point to the impact that's happening on that level? And so there is a path to impact. I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see a lot of people, whether you are at that legacy firm, that bigger firm, and we don't, by the way, we don't see a lot of black and brown people ascend to the partnership level of those big legacy firms. And so they're becoming upset and impatient and frustrated, and they're starting their own funds. I've seen that over and over again. Where is my path? And I have to put in a plug for my friends at Recast Capital, who have just formed their cohort of many venture capitalists. It's on LinkedIn. You could see it. And what they've done is they've provided thousands and thousands of dollars for operating capital for these VC firms that are small. They're really, really small. They're so small that they're not ready. A lot of them, according to some investors, they're not ready for institutional capital. They're fund ones, right? And they're so small. They're 15, they're 10, they're 20 million. And so you definitely can't approach a pension plan, an allocator, to allocate to that fund. They would eat it up. It's just way too small. It doesn't even, that's not your right investor. But to be that catalytic capital provider in the work that the Ford Foundation is doing and so many others I could name, that is what we need. I am so happy that there's a market for it. And if we would just allow them to be, to create, to show us a part of the market where we are finding amazing opportunities, where we are finding amazing um, firms such as Nomis Ventures out of Brooklyn, New York, my friend Simeon, New Age Capital. I mean, just name one. There's so many black and brown managers, Red Bike Capital, Hispanic owned firm that are seeing all of these amazing opportunities by way of startups. And then here's the gap. And now I'm putting a plug for Cherry Rock Capital, Stacy Brown Philpott, who was CEO at TaskRabbit that was acquired by Arkia. She's focusing on the more growthier part of venture capital because there's a gap between Series A and Series B. So she's focused on those, Series B, on the scale in the stage of venture because we see the drop off. And so, how do we provide support for those amazing ideas, for those amazing companies that could IPO, they could merge? Do you know the wealth gap that could be closed if we were to invest in some of these, not only the venture capitalists, but the companies? And where are the companies located regionally? People really have a focus intentionally on investing with US companies because there's so much to do in the US. All of our clients, by the way, are US based. And a lot of them want to invest in their backyard, right? Because there's problems that we have to solve right here. Now,
Of
just to
course.
be clear, we do diversify. We believe in diversification. And so, we believe in emerging markets and global markets as well, right? So we invest overseas, but our clients are non-profits who are based here in New York. And some of them are saying, we want to solve the problems that are right here.
So let's look at the problem, right? I mean, sure, there are many diverse venture capitalists, or even in other private equity managers, but on a total industry view, there's a huge lack of diversity within asset management.
Hmm.
And I think, and just listening to some of your prior podcasts that you've been involved in and some of your posts, I mean, you are a big advocate in terms of having diverse manager be part of their portfolio construction because
Hmm.
you do believe that it provides some downside protection, but also a diverse view,
That's right.
right? Now, what are the potential solution for greater diversity within the industry?
I love this question. And I actually answered this question at the Institutional Investors Inaugural Diverse botching the name of the conference, but they actually gave me a DE&I award on behalf of the work that we do at Crucial. And I thought, I really pray that one day you don't get awards for this work because we shouldn't, right? Everything should just be equal and just normal, and everybody should be on a playing field. But I was asked this question, and I love it because I go back to my HR background. I go back to the law firm where I spent many years. I didn't have a path for promotion. At a certain point, I had hit, the ceiling because when I tried to get into marketing and communications, they were all white people in that department. When I tried to formally enter the HR arm, I wasn't valued. It's funny how, it could stop people and it could change your trajectory because you become frustrated. And much like the venture capitalists, or non-traditional people that enter venture, they enter because of frustration. We can look at the statistics and we can see how many black women alone have become entrepreneurs and started businesses because of the microaggressions, because shit just shouldn't be this hard. And so we're tired of the workplace as it's been, set up to be not inclusive of people of color. But if HR professionals and leaders would have the backbone and fortitude to align themselves with the true strategic vision of any organization, to just be inclusive of that talent, to not only source from Ivy League schools, to appreciate the Baruch colleges of the world the way we have a number of Baruch alum at Crucial Partners, to look at our talent that's coming out of the HBCUs. What about city and state universities? Right? I told you I didn't have a path to college, but does that mean that I don't deserve to compete? Does that mean that I don't deserve to, meet the challenge of anything that you put in front of me? I literally could not go away to school. But so where are my opportunities? So if HR professionals would align themselves with leadership and have a voice and really be inclusive in their searches for talent, then we will see more diversity in every single area of society. We would solve so many social ills just by not holding people back and just opening the door, and not being the gatekeepers all the time, where, consultants are, infamously known as. I think we want to be known. I certainly want to be known personally as the gatekeeper of diversity. I have a bias towards diversity. And so I think it starts in corporate America. I think it starts with HR leadership and just not having an all white team even there. And to appreciate people who come from unique backgrounds, all walks of life, and just know off the bat that people have the potential. If you are human, if everything is normal, let's just assume that you have the ability to go anywhere you want. And if you would just not stop us, if you would just allow us to be, if we would just truly be a diverse team, oh my God, we could just stop having these conversations.
And you're right. I think that, having that opportunity available and the non-traditional school system, it's a great place to start, right? Because I think that, especially within the asset management industry, the the traditional way of going about it is to source to some of the top universities. And sure, you come across, great talent, but I think that there are great talents to be found at other universities that's not traditional because the individual couldn't afford to
Mhm,
go there, or they didn't have the proper network to
mhm,
get them that introduction.
mhm.
So no, I think that's well said. But we're about to wrap it up very soon, and I want to ask you two more questions before we wrap things up. And just listen to some of your busy background and some of the things that you have accomplished. Outside of work, what do you enjoy doing?
Oh, I love to dance. Um, and I'm going to find me I have a focus on 2 things. I love hip hop, right? And so this we're celebrating the 50th year of hip hop. I'm actually going to George Gershwin, my junior high school, on Saturday because they're my favorite DJ Keith Watkins from Cypress Hills
Okay, okay.
Project. He's playing there, I'm hearing, and I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna jam out at George Gershwin. By the way, I was rapping in my supposedly math class, but we weren't doing math. um, with Marky, with Mark from the Fat Boys, right? God bless
Wow.
him. So I remember, having that experience there. So I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go to Gershwin and I've got to get my 50th hip hop celebration dance on. So I love dancing. I love going to lounges with girlfriends, and I don't need a dance partner. I'm always in the middle of the dance floor. That's where you will find me. I will hit that floor if my jam is on. So I love to dance. I'm not saying I'm the greatest dancer, but man, do I love to dance. And so, but I want to take a dance class and take some more formal expressions of dancing. Like I want to find a step class. So I'm going to look to see what's at the Brooklyn Restoration Center. I'm going to take some modern dance, and I want to take some African dancing classes too. And then aside from that, I love to read. I love to read every single thing. Of course, we have to read about the markets all the time. But I also just like to self reflect. I'm starting to write down my thoughts. I wake up with thoughts now, and I write them down right away. And I notice that it turns into something else, that one thought, and it has me reflect. So I'm reflecting a lot. Aside from that, I have a 4-year-old grandbaby who just lights up my life. I just drop everything when she walks through the door with my son. On any given day, he'll come by every now and then and check on me. And what else do I like to do? I just, I like good food. My favorite food is soul food. Um, and I talk way too much because people just love talking to me. But again, I do listen a lot. But I'm always talking, I feel like. It's exhaustive, but it's also refreshing. And if I could help someone, like people, they come back to me and they're like, "Oh my God, I remember this conversation we had. You told me this, that, and the third." And I'm like, "Okay, I did. All right. That's good. Did it help you in some way?" It helps me when I talk to people and I feel like they can walk away with something that they didn't know, before. Or maybe I'm just sharing who I am and my experience, and it's just giving someone else the power and ability to go to another level or to explore. Here are some resources. What are you looking for? Okay, so you can talk to me and I can come up with 10 different things that are on my mind where you need to act on these things. I
That's
know
true.
I don't know. I just have this amazing talent to be able to do that, to connect the dots. I can evaluate something and I can immediately synthesize. This is what you need to do with this.
That's awesome. And that is an amazing skill set as well, and gift. So, outside of that, what I'm curious to know is that, what legacy do you want to leave behind when it's all over?
Yeah, I think about that too. I think about, of course, generational wealth. Looking at what I can leave my children, and what will people say about me when it's all said and done. Um, this is crazy, but when I go to funerals, I actually enjoy it because I enjoy celebrating people's life. Not that they died, but talking about them in such a way. And I always bring a story of that loved one that's very personal that people don't often know. I remember my cousins, my first cousins, who are actually, they feel more like sisters because we grew up so close. They told me I was at the church leaning on the podium. I was just so comfortable. So my family, they always pick on me to speak at funerals because I'm the one that's bold enough and more, most comfortable to do that. But I often stand up there and think, what will people say about me? I already know. You know why? Because I have a track record of being good, of being caring, of being kind, of being helpful. And if I walk away from any relationship, and this is not to say Angela is everything, but trust me, you need to look at what you did to me if I walk away, because I have an enormous amount of patience. I am forgiving. And I'll end on this. My mom said, you can't get into heaven with a grudge. And so I have no grudges. No grudges. If you don't call me out my name, you can always come back. And that's who I am.
Well said. Well, Angela, thank you for taking the time to join us in today's episode. It was a pleasure having you on. And hopefully, we have another chance to do this again.
I hope so. Thank you so much, Dinor, for inviting me. This has been really, really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Breaking Barriers of Black Investors. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. Your feedback fuels our mission to empower and uplift our community. Help us spread the word by sharing our podcast. Thank you for listening.